Welcome, listeners, to episode 4 of the Simply Sports Podcast. I am your host, Josh K, and I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today's episode. I'd first like to start off by thanking our sponsor, IPS Insurance. Insurance so good, you'd hope something bad happens to you. I think we've gotten so many suggestions about that. I think we're going to stick with that tagline. Also, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to last episode, liking, commenting, and sharing. I hope I can continue to entertain you guys on a weekly basis going forward. I'm going to continue to change up a few things every week, try and make it as good as I can, change the format, just to see what best fits the show. Anyway, today's episode, we got a great episode ahead of us. My guest, Gary Waite, my squash coach, former world number 1 double squash, hardball single squash, and top 15 in the world at softball single squash, is going to be coming in talking about how sports impact general life. And that's going to be followed by my first ever Simply Sports panel discussion with 3 of my really good friends, Griffin Manley, Alex Usby, and Leanne Willette. I hope that will entertain you guys, but before we get to anything else, let's recap what's happened in sports. Week 2 of the NFL season kicked off last weekend. Wow, lots of teams missed out a lot of stuff. They got some injuries on a lot of big players. Saquon Barkley out for the rest of the season with I think an Achilles or an ACL tear. Christian McCaffrey out for the next couple weeks. Those teams missing some big guys. And if you were wondering how serious these teams and organizations are going to be about COVID and the safety, well, there was some big evidence this past week. 2 coaches in the New Orleans Saints and Las Vegas Raiders game were fined $100,000 for not wearing their mask on the sideline. Guys, I know these guys are paid a lot through their contracts, probably millions of dollars per year, but geez, no one wants to be losing $100,000 for not wearing a piece of fabric on your face for a couple minutes, right? So $100,000, that's a lot, and that proves to you how serious these organizations like the NFL are taking this crisis, this pandemic that's going on in our world. They want to keep that NFL season going as long as they can. The NHL season, Stanley Cup Final, is underway, and the Tampa Bay Lightning lead the series 3-1. We can see if the Dallas Stars can come back in that one. That's been a great series so far. It was a quadruple, maybe double, triple overtime last night. Man, it was awesome. These games, these guys are really out there to win. Should be a great rest of the series. Both conference finals in the NBA have continued to entertain, with the Celtics last night forcing a Game 6 against the Miami Heat. That's been amazing. So many players. Tyler Hero dropping 37 points out of nowhere. Rookie, 20 years old. Won't even get to celebrate drinking some champagne with the team if they win. It's crazy. And Nuggets against the Lakers. That continues. The Lakers are up 3-1. But as we all know from the Nuggets playoff series so far, they've been down 3-1 both series so far. If any team's going to come back from a 3-1 a third time, it's going to be them. And that creates a lot of pressure on LeBron and the Lakers going forward. You know they have to be thinking about it a lot. Should be entertaining. That Game 5 is tonight. Should be great. Starting this Sunday, the 3rd Grand Slam of the season and the ATP season will start in Paris, the French Open. With the tournaments going on so far, the U.S. Open and Rome, it's been amazing. The entertainment has been great. You're going to see the return of Rafael Nadal on the clay court, which everyone loves to see. A French Open would be not the same without him. I hope that can continue. That starts tomorrow. And lastly, the MLB season is coming to an end. The playoffs are starting. The Blue Jays, yes, our home team town, did clinch a playoff spot the first time in 4 years. Seems like it's been a lot longer than that, but let's hope that they can succeed. The MLB has been doing a great job with handling their players. They play a lot of games, and the fact that they're still going now and going to the playoffs, it's amazing. I'm really impressed. I hope that they can keep it going. Okay, without further ado, guys, I would love to bring in our guest of the episode, Gary Waite. We're going to be talking about a lot of great, interesting stuff. Let's get Gary in here. Alright, guys, I would love to introduce my guest for the episode. He is my squash coach, Gary Waite. Gary, are you there?
I am right here.
Awesome. Let's first talk about who Gary Waite is. Let's call it a professional bio, if you'd like to say that. I'm just gonna ramble off a couple of things and correct me if I'm wrong. Okay?
Sure. Far away.
Okay, so you were number one in the world at double squash, correct?
Correct.
And for how long? Was it a couple years in a row?
13.
Oh yeah, more than a couple. I'd like to say, uh, and you were also number one in the world at hardball singles.
Correct.
And for how many years was that?
Oh, I guess on and off for a couple of years.
Okay, and then all the squash sport that all my friends and all the listeners watching softball singles, you were as high as number 12. Is that right?
Correct.
And was that kind of almost on the side to your doubles and hardball singles, or was that had its own main time in your career?
No, it was all at once. So in 1993, I was one in hardball singles, two in doubles, and 12 in the world, and I was full time at Harvard.
Wow.
But
Well,
you pick the priority.
I guess this is going to lead us to our next session. I wanted to play a little game I'd like to call fact or fiction, but you basically already answered my first one. The question was going to be, were you number one in the world at hardball, singles, doubles, squash, and number 12, all while doing a degree at Harvard? And you just said that is correct, the fact.
Correct. It wasn't during my time when I was number one consistently, but I'm sure I was number one at some point in there in doubles as well during that year.
S- so what happened? Were you just school all day, every day from Monday to Friday, and then once school was out, you were traveling somewhere to play a tournament every weekend?
Well, so I also played Bundesliga on the weekends in Germany on any open weekends. So the way it worked is I would travel and I would come back to school. I usually went to school on Wednesdays and then I would leave again. And I think I played 50 tournaments that year. So there were some weekends when I would play two.
And that was casual. That was, it was it easy to you at the time?
Well, it's no pressure, right? Because you're doing so many things.
Yeah, I guess maybe no pressure to you, but a ton of
I,
pressure
I,
to other people.
I, I did not have all my eggs in one basket, that's for sure.
Okay, well, this my next one is there is a rumor that you biked from Sarnia, where you lived, to Toronto, played a junior tournament, won that tournament, and rode your bike home. Is that fact or fiction?
Part fact, part fiction. I used to do the Sarnia to Toronto bike ride a lot, and I did it one time to play a pro hardball tournament, and I got to Toronto an hour before my match, and I played John Nimick, and he was ranked I think three at the time. I beat him, and then I seized up a little overnight and lost to Mario Sanchez the next day. So I guess I lost in the quarters.
Yeah, but it is a fact that what was it? Your parents weren't able to drive you, so you decided to bike?
No, so that was when I was sort of wasn't at home anymore. So that would have been in my 20s. So I did a lot of riding to events, and I began when I was a kid. I would ride my bike to Western from Sarnia and train with the team, and then often ride home. But as far as riding to Toronto to play a tournament, I think that was the only time I did that. It was to a pro hardball singles tournament at the Skyline Club out in Mississauga.
And for people who don't know watching this, is Sarnia roughly what would you say 300 kilometers away from Toronto?
300 kilometers, yeah. That's on the highway, so it's a little further on the secondary road, so you have to go on bike.
Okay. And last fact or fiction, this is probably the most important one. Uh, is it true that you've coached a lot of kids? True that your favorite kid has been named Josh K? Fact or fiction? I'm sure he's listening somewhere. I don't know where, but it's somewhere.
Well, I'm gonna, yes, as long as he comes back to me.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. You heard that, Josh K. He's calling you out. As long as you come back to him. Uh,
It's time. It's time to work.
okay. So let's get in the topic of the episode. What I wanted to mainly talk to you about, because I think you're one of the number one people I know that almost lives by this, is how sports, or you can use sports to impact uh, life performance, and that can include jobs, job prospects, school, family, or maybe even how one or personally how you might define your own success, if you want to say. Um, so let's start with your own family. For background, people who don't know, Gary has five kids, four girls, one boy, who are all very talented and very skilled in their own ways. Um, what role does sports play in your family?
Well, they're all athletic, but more than that, they're all. I guess their number one skills would be that they're all quite creative, and I
Hmm.
think the creativity comes from two places. It comes from a sense of freedom, and it comes from a sense of resourcefulness. And I think they've felt free enough to be resourceful enough to be creative, which I think sets the table to do just about anything, sports, whatever you want.
Yeah, and obviously you started them off with sports with squash at a very young age. How have you used sports to raise them to succeed in other fields of life? Like how have you, because you can relate it to school, and the hard work ethic. How have you used it to raise your kids?
Well, I think sports are really just a dumbed down version of life, right? It's in sports, it's quite simple. You win or you lose,
Hmm.
and much of that is determined before you step on the court or the field or anything. I mean, it's just good old fashioned, hard work, talent or no talent. So it's just an easy way of showing people, kids in particular, that if you want something, you work for it, and then you have what feels maybe like an immediate result, but it's not because, like I say, oftentimes it's predetermined. It's a very simple way of teaching kids about life, with all the complications, political, or otherwise, that you
Hmm.
experience in life.
Yeah, totally. And of course, sports, most kids maybe don't want to admit it, but we all know that sports can very much so build character. And for a very good example, very personal example, me and my brother have both trained under you, and I've trained under you for a couple years now. Gone through the Gary Carnage workout sessions, as they like to call them. Uh, Ultimately making us find our limits and see if we want to break through the wall. Uh, so share your opinion on the value of pushing your limits in sports.
Well, I mean, again, in life, if you think about, if your approach is such that you will always stay within your sort of your safety zone or within your realm of comprehension of the world and what your expectations are, and you just proceed that way, it's going to be pretty limiting and pretty boring. So again, sports and working out for that sport is a very simple example. You just find your preconceived notion of your barrier, and you bust through it and see what's on the other side, and then there'll be another one and another one and another one after that, and you're just exploring.
And do you truly believe that finding your limits in what you've done in sports can relate to school? Like if you have a hard or a bunch of work going on, you're having a hard time organizing and figuring out timing. And do you think sports can really create that push through in school as well?
Well, I don't think that there is really such a thing as limits. I think such a thing as being limited. I think that sports and life and the whole kit and caboodle are about process. I don't think they're about the destination, which the destination ties into limits, right? I mean, why would we want to impose limits on ourselves? And we indirectly do that by stating those limits or even talking about limits. Why bother? Why give them lip service, right? It's the
Yeah.
process that counts.
Hmm. And obviously with with COVID, with the coronavirus in sports, it's put it on hold, right? What would you suggest kids do workout wise as an alternative to sports so that they don't put themselves on hold?
What do you mean by it's on hold? It's put it on hold.
Almost like, I guess it's coming back now, but for training and tournaments, and there's not a lot of, I guess, possible motivation or reason to get out there and train every day. So what exactly do you think is the best thing to just be doing day in, day out? Like, what's going to keep you going in your sports without being able to train, really?
Well, if we can agree that perspective is just about everything, my perspective on that is that this has been a wonderful way to eliminate all the noise, and a big part of that noise is tournaments. Um, like we were talking about earlier, limits, expectations, judgment, all that stuff. And this break has just been quite there's big open spaces to fill.
hmm And I'm sure you're one of the biggest supporters of it at a time like this. There's no uh, better time to you have all the time in the world. What have you been done? What have you been doing, or your kids been doing to get that physical workout every day, almost?
Well, we actually started with that, with something to do. So when we were back in our condo, we've since moved out into a house. We had everybody together, all seven of us, and we would have sit up and push up comp. We had like a mini carnage session.
hmm
But then, and that was just for really, and just for giggles. Just sort of a check in to see where everybody was, and the kids more or less kind of kept that going throughout the summer, but really very much on their own. For us, it was really just a way to, live without the noise for a while. Like I said
hmm
earlier, we just had you know, lots of time together, all seven of us. My oldest and my second oldest don't live at home, so this particular time they were. So we had all that time together, and that's difficult when there's a lot of other stuff going on and a lot of other demands on people's time. So we didn't so much as use it as a time to, get fit, like probably,
hmm
junior squash players should be doing right now if they want to, get a leg up on their competition. We just filled the space with a lot of beautiful time.
Yeah, and I'm sure with the squash season or a lot of different sports seasons being canceled this year, I'd like to get your perspective on the training side because I know a lot of coaches or a lot of people have almost checked out, but I know to a person like you probably see it as the best possible time to get fit and get better than everyone else, right?
Well, I mean, and you've heard me say this, right? Some people are talented, and some people are not as talented, and so many things in sport that you just can't control, including the outcome. But the best way to contribute to it is just by working harder than the other person.
hmm
That how hard you work is actually the thing that's most in your own control. It seems like the hardest. It's easier not to work and to win than it is to work and to win, or to work and to lose. So yeah, I mean, I know you're sort of asking me the same question, and I'm digressing, but for sure, now is the time to work as hard as you absolutely can, because if you work yourself to exhaustion, if you work yourself to passing out, if you work yourself to total incompetence, it doesn't really matter, because what else have you got to do? You don't have a tournament that you've got to recover for. You don't have as many demands on your time in school, really. You can pass out and enjoy the feeling.
Yeah, you know, you know what, Gary? It's always so interesting to talk to you about this stuff because I don't know anyone like you who has the perspective almost that you do. You look at everything totally different than almost anyone I know. So it's always so interesting to hear what you have to say about these certain situations because I'm sure a lot of people would have checked out or looked at this time as maybe a time to laze, a time to not do anything, a total time to just rest and not sleep, stay in bed all day. But you're the opposite. You look at it as the perfect time to go and spend time with the family or spend time getting fit and whatever. So thanks so much for coming on the show. It was really interesting. Really great talking to you.
Does that mean you're coming back?
Of course, that does mean I'm coming back. I'm excited to come back. Or don't
Oh,
worry.
well, then this interview was worthwhile. Thank you.
Ah, thanks so much, Gary. We'll see you soon. See ya.
See you, buddy.
Well, thank you guys for watching this episode. Hopefully you guys can like, subscribe to the channel, comment any suggestions you guys might have, share if you can, no pressure. Guys, this is the 4th episode. Every week I'm going to be trying to post an episode, but I want you guys to tell me anything you guys like about the show, anything you guys don't like the show, any about the feedback. Just message me on Instagram, email me, comment on the YouTube. I want to hear all of it, whatever you guys have. I want to try and grow the show based on your guys' opinion, because that's what really matters, as much as I can. Of course, I got to thank our sponsor, IPS Insurance. Nothing would be possible without them. If you're unable to watch it on YouTube, it is always on Spotify at Simply Sports. I personally can suggest that you watch it on YouTube, because I think the visuals, especially with an episode like this, with our first panel discussion, it gives it that little extra kick, that little extra entertainment that it needs. But anyways, guys, that's it from me. I'm going to be signing off. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you later.